meeting that's been held at Southam since the death of the Duke of Edinburgh. And we'd also like to remember at the same time Tracy Windsor, an executive director who has also sadly died recently. She was an executive director up to the T18 process and left as that process started and was replaced by Sophie Hoskins. So a sad moment for all of us, and especially the loss of the Duke of Edinburgh. So we'll have 1 minute silence from now. Thank you. Thank you, members. And good morning. The first item on the agenda well, before I start, can I just remind everybody how this committee works? If executive members want to speak, please would you put your hand up? If anybody else wants to speak, please would you indicate it in the chat box, and I'll try and handle it that way. Now, we've got a lot of business to transact this morning, and quite a lot of it I'm sure members will want to have a say in. But can I remind you, if you've already had your say to the executive member or to any executive member other than the particular executive member, then the executive probably know about it and will have taken it into consideration. So what I don't want to hear is views that have already been expressed previously, because otherwise we're never going to get through this morning, and I shall cut off questions from the floor if there are too many and they're going on too long. So the first item on the agenda are the minutes of the last meeting. Members of the executive, are you in agreement with these minutes? Could you indicate, please? Please say if you're not in agreement.
Happy with the minutes.
Happy with the minutes.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. Well, that sounds like agreement. And so we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, which is urgent business. Now, we do have one item of urgent business, which Councillor Bastone is going to present, and that is the ARG policy supporting our business communities. Councillor Bastone, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, members of the executive and members and officers. This urgent item has come forward for consideration by the executive in response to government changes to the ARG grant scheme. The Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy had been clear that ARG funding was a one-off and to last until March 2022. It has now advised that councils that pay out all their ARG allocation by the end of June 2021 will be eligible for a further round of funding. In the case of Southampton District Council, the original allocation awarded was £2,512,941, and the further allocation available is £891,000. Sorry, £891,000. This report sets out what measures can be put in place so that the original allocation can be paid to businesses and the new allocation of £891,000 received. In doing so, this council will ensure it has done everything it can to maximise support to its businesses and the local economy as part of the pandemic recovery phase. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Bastone. Members of the Executive, do you have any questions to Councillor Bastone, please?
No, Leader.
Thank you. Right. Are there any questions from the floor on this?
Sorry, Leader, before you do, Councillor Baldry's got his hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Baldry. Apologies. Councillor Baldry.
No, because we've only just received this paper, Councillor Bastone, can you just repeat, and I do understand what you've just said, how this differs from what we agreed at the last full council?
That's listed in the report that, as I said, we originally were awarded over 2.5 million at the initial stage of the ARG allocation. And what has happened is...
Councillor Bastone, I understand that, but we approved at the last full council £498,000 to be allocated. Is this an additional 498, or is it the same 498 in a different guise?
This is the recommendation 2 recommends the council to approve the use of that 498,000 from the business rates retention earmark reserve to fund any wider business support measures approved by council on the 25th of March. Yes, and that cannot be funded from the new ARG allocation.
Councillor Baldry, I think I might be able to help out on this.
Thank you.
The problem is that we don't have clear regulations for the third tranche of funding, which is going to come through in June, and that is the £800,000 we've been talking about. In the event that at the moment we are confident that that 498,000 could be taken out of the present allocation under the present regulations. Now, if the present regulations don't change, then they could equally be taken out of the next round of funding. So what we're saying is, so long as they don't change, it will come out of the next round of funding, but we need to actually distribute what we've got left in the fund to the businesses who have already applied and have had funding, because we think they could well do with some extra funding. And should the regulations change, then we may have to take part of that funding out of the business rates reserve if it's not eligible in the third round. But one of our problems is that BIS keep changing the regulations, and so the goalposts keep changing, and we can't anticipate what the changes are going to be. Now, there was a conversation between officers and BIS yesterday at which they gave, I think, assurance to Mrs. Buckle and Mr. Brooke that there wouldn't be any problems, but until we get it in black and white, we're not 100% certain, which is the point of the second recommendation on the paper.
Thank you, Leader. That helps. I'm always nervous when I see the words like of up to 498,000. Can Councillor Bastone or you or officers give a rough indication how near to the 498 we're going to be and how near we are to be zero? Up to is a very loose term.
Well, up to will depend on the uptake from the towns of their £50,000 allowance that they've been given.
Okay, good. I'm obviously fairly thick this morning. I shall move on, Leader.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Baldry. I mean, please ask another question if you want to, but I think Councillor Bastone, would you agree with that analysis that it will depend on the let the Chief Executive come in and comment.
Thank you, Leader. Sorry, this is complicated, and the reason it's complicated is because the BIS guidance has changed and continues to change. When the decision was taken by Council previously, we were confident that the regulations at that time were clear and would provide for wider business support to be allowable within the ARG funding. Since then, the guidance has been tightened, and we have taken further advice, as the Leader explained. Nevertheless, at this point, what we can't be confident is that the guidance won't continue to change. If I could remind members that one of the very early rounds of grant funding, there were 4 different versions of the guidance before it settled, and we're also in a position of some change here. In terms of the money we're planning to use through this, £250,000 is proposed to go to town councils, and with regard to that money, we will ensure that the use of that money is contingent on it being consistent with the guidance at the time. So we can be reasonably confident that if that money is taken up, that £250,000 will be contained within the new ARG funding. It is a bit less clear with some of the other aspects, so I hope that helps Councillor Baldry with a partial explanation. But in terms of any further clarity on precisely where we will be on that range between 498 and 0, it's difficult. Thank you.
Thank you. That is very helpful, and it explains why it is a elastic figure for the time being.
Thank you, Councillor Baldry. I'm glad that's cleared that up for you. So if there are no more questions from members, I will take questions from the floor, but can you make them short, please? And I don't want any repetitions. Councillor Sweet.
Hi, yeah, just to clarify, please, Andy and Judy, the 25,000 to town councils, that is the money that would have to be match funded, isn't it?
Yes, it's 250,000, 50,000 per town council selected, and yes, it does have to be match funded.
Thank you.
Councillor Long.
Thank you, Chairman. Some quick questions. I'm pleased to see the possibility of the ARG monies going to the LRSG open applications, and I'm assuming this is to make sure that all applications that are in and that are still being made can and will be funded, because obviously there are a lot of businesses out there still making applications, and I think there was concern that it would be, it would close before they could get any funding to them. The other thing is, and I know how complicated this is because of moving goalposts, and I think that has got to be the most annoying thing, is a question on the ARG funding. It's obviously extremely important for many small businesses that are not business rated, and there are a number in Salcombe who are very seasonal. They are still not able to operate fully. They've got a lot of setup costs now going out. Is there any indication? I'm hoping that these businesses will continue to be supported when their applications come in, that there's no changes in that ability to really support those seasonal and small businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bastian, do you want to answer that, or shall I ask Mr. Brooke to give us precise details of how the further payments will go out?
I'm quite happy to answer that, Leader, if that's appropriate.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Long. So yeah, what we're not planning to do is change the policy behind this, the detail of how businesses apply for the money, because we want this to be as simple and as easy for them as possible. This did change the requirement slightly, so there is some very minor tweaks to their application, i.e. there's a bit of data they've asked us we now need to collect, but nothing that will cause a problem. Those smaller businesses are exactly what we want to catch with the ARG, because as you rightly point out, they miss out on, if they're not business rated, so they haven't got the right premises or whatever, they do miss out on some of the other grants. So yes, in short, we will be able to make a big difference with this ARG money for a longer period of time to exactly the types of businesses you're referring to. And I actually also hope that the money that's given to the town councils, which is another opportunity to really make a difference at a local level. I think that's what's so powerful about this idea, that it's a local decision, and some of the businesses in Salcombe, for example, line up perfectly with the sorts of descriptions you've just given, and I'm sure the town council and the business community of Salcombe will be looking to support them as well. So 2 opportunities, I think.
Okay. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Chris.
No problem.
Yeah, thanks very much, Chris. That's really a help, and just the reply I was hoping to hear for Salcombe as well. Do we have any further questions? Because if not, I'm going to ask Councillor Bastone to propose the recommendations.
I will propose the recommendation as on the screen in front of everyone. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah. Can we have the second part of the recommendations on the screen so that everybody knows exactly what's being proposed, please? Thank you. So most members should have this paper in front of them and should be aware of what the recommendations are. Councillor Baston, I know it's going to take a long time, but I think for Councillor Pennington's benefit, it might be a good idea if you could read the recommendations out, because I'm not sure he will have had this paper.
The recommendations, there are 4 of them, that the executive, 1, approves the revised approach to the ARG policy to support the business community, local economy and local place in response to further funding being made available from central government, subject to the existing allocation being spent by June 2021. Recommendation 2 recommends to Council to approve the use of up to £498,000 from the business rates retention earmark reserve to fund any wider business support. Cut me off. Business support
measures. Business support measures approved by Council. Yeah.
Yeah. Business support measures approved by Council on 25th of March 2021 that cannot be funded from the new ARG allocation. Recommendation 3 approves the use of the ARG funding to make payments for the remaining LRSG open applications up until 30th of April, when the LRSG open scheme closes, as the LRSG open funding allocation is to close to be fully spent, so as to ensure the maximum amount of grant support for the business community. Recommendation 4 continues to delegate the administration of the ARG scheme to the Director for Place and Enterprise in consultation with the Section 151 officer, the leader and the executive member for finance, including the decision as to how to fund wider business support measures once the further guidance on the ARG scheme has been published and clarified.
Thank you, Councillor Bastone. So you're moving those recommendations?
Yes.
And I'll second them. Thank you. Right, now we'll open up the debate. Members of the executive, do you want to make any remarks on this paper? Any comments? Don't see any hands going up. Right, so I'll open it to the floor for comment. Okay, well, it seems that there aren't any, so, oh, yes, Councillor Brazil.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, a few comments, if I may. Notwithstanding that this paper reads a bit like the script from Line of Duty, I have to say it is slightly disappointing. It's very hard to follow exactly what's going on here, and I think it should have been written in plainer English. But having said that, there are a number of issues that I'd also like to raise. I'm becoming increasingly concerned that a lot of public money here is being dished out to businesses, and I'm sure that the vast majority of them is absolutely right and proper that they should be. But we have here some rather, interestingly, the one bit of detail there is it talks about breweries and distilleries. I can understand why breweries might need some support. I'm not quite so sure about distilleries. My understanding is that alcohol consumption has gone up over this period. Breweries supply pubs; they've obviously been shut. Distilleries provide, tend to supply alcoholic retailers, off licenses, supermarkets, etc. And so I'm struggling to understand exactly why they should be party to this extra monies. I suppose my main thing is that in recommendation 4, that where it's the leader and executive member for finance, I'd also like the local members to be included there when it's a decision about a business in their area. And finally, on that particular point, I very much hope that at the end of all this, that we have an extensive and comprehensive list of all the businesses that have been provided with monies, how much they've been provided, and so that we can justify to members of the public why some businesses get a certain amount and others get less. I'm also particularly worried that there are people who haven't qualified thus yet, but in my view should be getting monies, but for some technical reasons don't. And I think that we should be allowing them to get monies too. My final point is about the 498,000, I think it is, I can't see it on the screen now, coming out of the business reserve. I refer members to the minutes that you've just approved, E7120. And there it was quite specifically stated that if we did find ourselves short of money to cover some of what I regard as revenue costs of this council in dealing with the summer coming, that would come out of the unearmarked reserves. And yet here we have that the 488 is going to come out of the business rates retention earmarked reserve. I think that's wrong. I think it should come out of the unearmarked reserves, as was stated in the minutes that you have just approved. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brazil. Councillor Batten, do you want to answer any of those comments? You're on mute.
Could I let Mr. Brooke answer them, please?
Yeah, happy to come in. So I think it's about so the general point around who's being paid and how much they're being paid is absolutely right. It's public money. Not only do we need to be absolutely clear, which we are, we will be we have to keep the data for up to 10 years. We will be required. We will be fully audited. We're using the national databases that BEIS have given us access to, so spotlight checks, to ensure that all the businesses that get the money are genuine and real. There's a huge effort going in behind the scenes to ensure there's no fraud. So I couldn't agree more, and we're absolutely, meeting the requirements of the government guidelines, as with all government guidelines that we have to stick to. And I sympathise with this point. There are businesses that would appear, there are, I would say, a minority, but there are businesses that sometimes are unable to access the funding and feel as though they're being singled out and not treated fairly. But we actually have an incredibly pragmatic approach. Our clear approach is where we can pay and support businesses, we do. There are a very minor number of businesses that they just are unable to be supported because they don't meet the criteria. But what we have to always be is consistent and fair across all businesses across the district. So we balance that as best we can. But if it's of interest in terms of breweries and distilleries, they are being singled out here because they've been singled out by the government as not being able to access the restart grants. The restart grants are there to support hospitality and leisure sector. I made some calls to breweries and distilleries in the district. Just taking one example close to Councillor Brazil's area, but I accept not in it. Salcombe Distillery lost 200,000 on what it should have made through the lockdown. They are been unable to access the support that they would be able to get. So some of their, because they don't offer in-person services, and that's the requirement for the restart grant, they've missed out on that. So I take the point that they're probably able to sell online. They probably are able to sell to supermarkets, as are others, but they are they also serve a lot of the local pubs. They're a local brand. There are others as well in a similar position. So they have been excluded from the national picture for the restart grants, and the ARG guidance from government has been clear that we may want to consider filling the gap with new additional ARG funding because of that. So that's the logic there. But perhaps if that hasn't covered all of those questions, I'm happy to pick up any others.
Can I just cover the one in recommendation 4 that Councillor Brazil mentioned? Councillor Brazil, we don't approve individual applications. What we might be approving, should it happen, were there any changes in the BIS regulations and the people we could pay or the people we couldn't pay, and there needed to be subsequent changes to those that definition, then Councillor Bastone and myself would be consulted, but we certainly wouldn't be consulted about individual businesses being paid. So I think from that respect, there is no need for the local member to be involved, as we wouldn't be involved either. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, just very quickly, can we have an assurance that businesses which have not been eligible before but may now be eligible, will we be contacting them proactively to let them know? Because I do know of several businesses in my ward who feel quite bitter that they've, for various reasons, not fallen into the category of being eligible for grants in the past. If they would be eligible under the new scheme, will we be contacting them if they have applied in the past?
Sorry. Yeah, Mr. Brooke, do you want to come in? You please answer that. Yeah, fine.
Thank you, Linda. My apologies to talk across you there. Yeah, so no, I can give that assurance. The majority of businesses will benefit, are already contacted us, and they will benefit because we're not changing the real detail of the rules behind this. So most businesses will essentially get more support for longer as a result of this change. But what I'm really pleased to point out is that there are some seasonal businesses. So take the example of perhaps an events company or somebody that runs a very summer seasonal business where they are theoretically eligible for ARG, but they still do have to evidence a loss because we absolutely are not able to use this as wage support. So we can't just say, oh, well, you know, so if they don't normally earn any money in the winter, they can't get money from the ARG in the winter. It's that clear. And of course, the first round of ARGs kicked in November when they were not making any money, but also wouldn't normally make any money. But now, because of this additional funding, if it's approved and we can move into the summer season, they are now able to evidence the fact that they would have been making money and are unable to. And so I'm really delighted that some of the seasonal businesses, which were probably feeling a bit left out in the cold, will be able to access this new funding. So that's really good. That's sort of events companies in particular, showmen, that sort of thing.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Baldry, apologies, I see you've got your hand up, so I'll bring you in now.
What I didn't hear was an answer to Councillor Brazil's question about from which reserve this money is being taken. Is it taken as we approved at the last executive meeting, or is which was from the unearmarked reserves, or is it going to come from the business rates retention earmarked reserve? I didn't hear an answer to that question.
Councillor Baldry, the proposal now is that it should come from the business rates retention reserve if we need to take it from any reserve, but under the present regulations, we don't think we will need to, because we think it's an eligible expense out of the ARG money that's going to come through, just like it was eligible in the last lot. But we can't be certain about that until the regulations are actually published. This is one of the problems with BIS. They tell you the money is coming, but they don't publish the regulations until ages after that.
Sorry, Leader, I hear that, but just an explanation why we've changed our mind from the last executive.
Well, I'll leave that to Mr. Brooke and Mrs. Buckle if they want to come in, but I'm sure Mrs. Buckle has recommended that's the most suitable place to take it from.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I'm happy to come in on that. I don't think our recommendation has changed. Previously, we were also saying that for the money to come from the business rate retention reserve, we couldn't recommend that money comes from the unearmarked reserves because our unearmarked reserves are at a level of 1.8 million. And if we were to take up to £500,000 from there, that would reduce our unearmarked reserves down to 1.3 million, which is lower than the minimum level set by council for unearmarked reserves of 1.5 million. And again, although the minimum level of unearmarked reserves has been set at 1.5 million, we should always be looking to be operating comfortably above that. That is the minimum level that we should ever go down to. So we wouldn't recommend taking £500,000 from unearmarked reserves. I think the minute that was referred to was the minute around the budget monitoring report, and in the budget monitoring report, there were several recommendations around things like the business rates pooling gain and transferring some of the salary underspend into an earmarked reserve. But I don't think the recommendation to take money from the business rate retention reserve has changed. It has always been from there. It's just we need clarity from BEIS on the amount that would be taken from the business rate retention reserve. We did have a conversation with BEIS yesterday. That's the BEIS are the department that are responsible for the business grants. That was a very productive and positive conversation. We have shared with them details around the scheme for the towns package and the requirement for the match funding. They are going to have a look at that scheme and look at the further detail of that. So we just need confirmation from them that that would be eligible to be taken from the ARG scheme, and that would be from the future allocation, the 890 that we would lever in if we spent all of our allocation by the 30th of June. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Mrs. Buckle. Councillor Baldry, is that all right for you?
Well, it is and it isn't. I am struggling to deal with recommendations which have, from Mrs. Buckle, minimum levels competing with up to, in other words, maximum levels of levering across. As Councillor Brazil has indicated, it is a very complicated paper and it is not very tightly drawn up. But yeah, I'm going to vote in favour because I think it is good news to get this money, getting more money back into the local economy. But yeah, we seem to have moved into loosely worded papers, which none of us can be happy about.
Thank you, Councillor Baldry. Councillor Sweet.
Hi, just really briefly, because it's already been commented on by previous councillors. And I should just quickly declare a pecuniary interest because I am a recipient of some of the grants. But could we sort of take this opportunity to go a step further and really try and interpret any rule changes in the sort of government criteria for the grant, so we can really pick up on some of those businesses that haven't been able to claim before? For example, people that are trading out of a business address, so therefore they're not applicable to pay business rates. You know, can we really look at the patterns of businesses that have been turned down? Because
Councillor Sweet, that is exactly what Mr. Brooke has given you assurance on, that they will be looking for any of the businesses which can possibly be eligible under the present regulations to receive ARG grant.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
All right. Right, Councillor Kemp. Oh, sorry, Councillor Hawkins, your hand's gone up.
If that's okay, Leader.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I think we need to remember the most important thing here is to actually get this money out to the businesses as fast as we possibly can. The council has done an excellent job in the last 12 months, and I've not had many people at all, other than those who weren't able to be eligible to get the grants, have said anything negative about this council and the way that we've actually got the money out to the businesses as fast as we can. And at the present moment, that's the most important thing. And I think with the officers which we've got, with Chris Brooke and Lisa Buckle looking after us and advising us, we need to get this money out to those businesses as fast as we possibly can.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins, and thank you for your support. Now, Councillor Kemp, I don't really understand your question, so I don't know whether Mr. Brooke does.
Apologies, Leader, I'm just going to read it.
Mr. Brooke does.
Sorry, yes, no, we Well, I think the assumption is that the money that has come to us from central government is public money. So essentially what we're saying is we've been given additional public money from central government, which we are now the issuing body for. So we then distribute it to the businesses. And as a result of that, we are part of the audit trail to ensure that the public money that came in the first place gets spent fairly and consistently. So I think that's what we're saying.
Right. Okay. So essentially, if I got it right, then that you're going to pay out of our own sort of coffers until we know what the government are, what their criteria is. Is that right?
Oh no, apologies. No. So the money that we're going to, so we've been given £2.5 million, roughly speaking. That was going to, in very simple terms, that was going to last until March 22. But there's an opportunity to access another 890 odd thousand. In order to get that 890 odd thousand, which clearly we want from central government to be able to support more businesses, really what we've got to do is spend the original allocation quicker. We need to do that exactly in line with the existing policy, which we're going to do. We're going to do it successfully, and we're going to do it in advance of the deadline, and we're going to hopefully draw down that additional money as quickly as we can. And what we're saying here is that there is an element of wider business support for which the guidance has, as our chief executive set out, has tightened and evolved over time as Bays or Biz, however you pronounce it, have looked at it. And Lisa and myself spoke with them yesterday to make sure we had absolute clarity over that. They were able to give us confidence, but not full clarity. And we are expecting a more black and white, hardened up version of that positive response in time. And we just need to make sure that, and that will apply to wider business support. So recommendation 2 in the future with the future allocation of money. So there's no risk around getting the 890 extra money. That's great. And how to spend that 890, that'll be in 2 parts. There'll be some element of that money that will go direct to businesses, for which we have full confidence we will do quickly and well. And then there's the wider business support, for which there is a range of measures set out in the previous council decisions. And that's the area around that we just need to finalise our position on.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Chris, for that.
No worries. Thank you, Councillor.
Okay. And did you see my other question? Have you read that yet, Chris, in your email? I'm sorry, we were having a conversation before.
Can we keep this to the business that we're transacting at the moment, please?
Oh, okay. Yes, miss. Thank you.
Right. Any further questions? Because if not, we'll take the vote on this one. I'm sorry, members, it is a complicated paper. I don't accept that it's like line of duty, because actually it's only really the names of the grants that are in that's an acronym, and they're explained at the beginning of the paper, and things like BIS and FAQs, I think everybody knows what they mean. So I don't think it's as bad as line of duty at all. Right, members of the executive, are we in favour of this paper, please? Anybody against? Right, I'll take that as everybody in favour then. Thank you. Mr. White, can you record that for us? And we'll move on to the next item, which are declarations of interest. Members, do you have any interest to declare on anything that is to be transacted today?
No, Leader.
None, thank you.
Chair, sorry, Chair, I've got my hand up. I'd like to declare a personal interest in the item on motorhome and camper vans, as I have owned and do own both.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I should have taken division of the agenda, but I don't think there's going to be any need to divide the agenda this morning on the face of the business to be transacted. Public question time. We have one question, which I think Councillor Bastone is going to answer.
Yes, I will, Chairman. In fact, it's 3 questions in one, so I'll split them out. But first of all, I'd like to thank Dr. Thelma Rumsey, who is the Secretary of South Hams Tree Wardens Network, for asking these questions. We all have a love for trees. And I would also like to thank all the tree wardens in the district who do such excellent work in keeping an eye on the trees in the South Hams. Right, the question is, does Sxtc have a tree strategy? What measures will be taken to retain mature trees vital within our landscape? In recognising their importance, could Sxtc consider increasing their staffing? Another arboriculturist plus dedicated team of assistants and legal. Right, the first one, does Sxtc have a tree strategy? Sxtc currently has a tree protection, inspection and management policy and procedures document. This document is similar to a tree strategy, but it is now in need of updating. This would see a broader strategic approach to tree management and protection and would embrace additional important issues related to climate change, air quality, and the impacts resulting from current pests and diseases. For example, the ash dieback. The government is already reviewing this at a national level under the England Tree Strategy consultation of 2020, with the intention of issuing directives to local authorities. Aware this is due, we are minded to see the outcome so it can help shape our own approach to an Sxtc tree strategy, and in particular because this would enable better opportunities to tap into funding sources. Second part of the question, what measures will be taken to retain mature trees vital within our landscape? There are already robust procedures in place within our current legislative framework for protecting trees to ensure their retention in developments. Similarly, the revised National Planning Policy Framework now secures protection of ancient and veteran trees. The local authority proactively works to retain trees within the resources available and must act reasonably in its approach to secure tree protection when applying tree preservation order legislation. This is where the support of our community is of particular importance, especially the highly valued role that tree wardens play in helping the council to retain and protect the district's trees when they come under threat. We are also working with our partners such as Devon County Council, Woodland Trust, etc., in shaping a collective response to climate change and the significant adverse effects arising from ash dieback. Third part of the question, and this is the third part of the question, which is in recognising their importance, could Sxtc consider increasing staffing, another arboriculturist plus dedicated team assistants and legal? We continually monitor our resourcing regarding our statutory responsibility, including arboricultural matters within the council, to ensure that the service is maintained. Thank you, Chairman, and thank you to the Doctor for the question.
Thank you, Councillor Bastow. Right, so that's the end of public question time. The next item on the agenda, item 6, is the Executive Forward Plan, which you will find the forward part of it on page 13 of the agenda. Does anybody have any questions on this? I'll open it up to the floor because I think that it's probably clear to the executive members, but any questions? Okay, well, in which case we will move on now to the motorhome policy, which is item 7 on the agenda. Councillor Baldry.
Yeah, I don't. If I'm just a few introductory remarks about this, I find this a very exciting moment when we're going to make this decision about motorhomes. I hope the executive will approve the paper. Just to point out a couple of things. Firstly, that it is a trial for 12 months, and we will consider during and towards the end of the trial whether or not to go forward for future years. Secondly, motorhomes which will be allowed to park in our car parks overnight must have onboard facilities. They will need to have onboard facilities, especially toilet facilities. But we will have consulted with those members where there are car parks in which we are proposing to have motorhomes allowed to stay overnight. But in addition to that, Leader, there will be a 3-week consultation. We've had a number of comments already sent in about this from members and members of the public. All of those will be taken into account, whether they were received before this executive meeting or during the 3-week consultation. But the reason, Leader, I'm excited about this, because the primary reason I want this to be introduced is that it is good for the local economy. Where people park overnight in our car parks in their motorhomes, the great hope is that they will go on to use local facilities. They will go to cafes, restaurants, local shops and to pubs. It should be good for the economy, and in a minute I will be proposing the recommendation. Happy to take questions as appropriate.
Thank you, Councillor Baldry, for introducing that entirely in the spirit of how we hope the paper will be taken. Now, I've got a few questions. Do I have any questions, first of all, from members of the executive? Councillor Hopwood, you've got your hand up, but I think that could be more in the debate than a question, is it?
Yeah, it's not a question. It's not a question. It's for
I'll
the
take
debate.
First in the debate, then. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor, question.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I think this is a great idea, but I got concerns about our very small parking area in Modbury, the lower overflow car park. I visited for the last 3 evenings, and the maximum amount of spots that was left there was 3 parking spots. And I got concerns if you get too many mobile homes, it'll push the locals back onto the streets for parking. Can we put a limit on the number of homes that visit smaller car parks? Thank you.
Councillor Baldry, do you want to answer that one?
I'm amazed at what Councillor Taylor said. Life must have changed a lot, because that is an enormous car park, the lower one, but the spaces will be marked out for motorhome usage. I shall try and pop over there one evening to see if it is as full up as Councillor. I'm sure it is as full as it says, but it is a very, very big car park with very few cars parking in it for much of the day.
We aren't looking at days, or are we, Councillor? We're looking at nights.
What you're saying is the locals who haven't got garages or parking places are parking there overnight.
I am, yes.
Yeah, okay. Again, as I said in the introduction, Leader, we'll take account of all these as part of the consultation.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Baldry. Right, Councillor Foss.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. It's more of a comment than anything. I'm very pleased that this has come forward. I've been pushing for this for a long time because I've got a particular spot, as you well know, that we've had particular difficulties on. It will improve the management of the motorhomes, and I welcome the paper, and hopefully it'll work out, and that we'll go forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Foss. This is meant to be questions, but I'm happy to.
Yeah, all right. Yeah,
okay.
It's a bit quick. Sorry.
It's all right. Councillor Rowe, you're down for a comment, as is Councillor Brazil, as is Councillor Sweet. So I will take it that is the end of the questions. Councillor Kemp, you've got a question.
I have. My question is for Keith. Is the council going to be able to find people that dump out their grey water? Because I have seen it happen in lay-bys right opposite my house, and so obviously that's a bit of a concern. And also, I'm not sure the bins are big enough in the car parks to accommodate the potential extra waste. But apart from that, I'm keen on it though, so don't get the wrong idea. I am keen on it. I think it's a great idea and about time.
Good. The answer to the grey waste discharge in lay-bys is not part of this policy paper. It is illegal. It is a matter for other authorities to enforce that. But on the question of enforcement, if I can just seize on the opportunity, the great thing about this proposal is we now have the reinforced localities team out and about who will be able to enforce that if people are dropping litter in the wrong places, or if they are perchance discharging grey water, we can enforce it.
Okay, does it by way of a fine or something, Keith? Is that what happens?
I don't know. I don't know if this is a matter of national law. I'm not an expert on it will be a fine for discharging in a lay-by, certainly, in my opinion. But I would like legal advice on that, whether that is appropriate for a fine. If there is discharge of waste into our car parks, then it is a matter for this council to put an enforcement fine on it, yes. But in our car parks, the public highways, it's not my field of expertise.
Right, okay, thank you.
Yeah, the public highway will not be covered by this because this paper is for our own car parks only. Councillor Baldry, that seems to be the end of the question, so would you like to propose the recommendations now?
Yeah, thank you. I propose the recommendations as shown at the top of the paper to reinforce that I am proposing the option 2 on there, but also option 2 as in paragraph 3.2, and that I would also add, by way of introduction, that I draw members' attention to option 3 on paragraph 3.3, which is for future years. And if this is a successful 12-month trial, I am personally supportive of the idea having the provision of motorhome spaces around the district, not necessarily in the same places as in this paper, for future, for where people can have hookups and waste disposal, showers and drinking water. Because I think, as I've already said, for the economy of the South Hams, if we can encourage people to come here and use our facilities in the future, it is always going to be good for the South Hams. I'll move the recommendation.
Seconded.
Thank you both. Okay, so members, I think Councillor Hopwood wants to come in and start the debate, please.
Sorry, Leader. Thank you. Yes, I will. Thank you, Leader. This report is a significant move forward for South Hams Council in the way in which we treat motorhome or camper van users, and will go a long way to controlling what was a massive problem in some areas last year. According to the DVLA, as at June 2020, there were an estimated 350,517 motorhomes in the UK. With the staycation culture, especially this year and hopefully for many more years to come, when people start to realise that actually the UK is a beautiful country, there could be a shift in the way people holiday. As a council, we have a duty of care to holidaymakers who choose to travel around our beautiful area in self-contained units and embrace them instead of making parking overnight in council-owned car parks prohibited. However, a balance needs to be struck, as this council should not be in competition with registered sites. People who don't want to use sites as they don't need the facilities that these offer, such as showers, toilets and electric, need somewhere as an alternative to park up and sleep for a night, as is provided in other countries. Suitable car parks should be near enough to town or village centres so that the occupiers can be encouraged to use the local chippy, restaurant or shops and help to reboot the vibrant towns and villages we were used to seeing before COVID. As a member of this council, I am proud of what local businesses have to offer, and by making parking near amenities easy and lawful, it will add to our local economy. Campra put out a survey in September 2020 and had nearly 9,000 responses to the questions asked. If local councils got 900 replies to a survey, then that would be deemed as really successful. So the response gives some feedback that we should take note of. 97% of respondents said they spent locally whilst away, with 82% eating out twice or more a week. These are big percentages. 82% of respondents spend 30 days per year or more touring around the UK. I would also encourage local village halls and parish councils to look into where they could offer overnight parking and sleeping, and again encourage motorhomes, whilst at the same time opening a new revenue stream and helping local pubs, shops, takeaways, etc. However, there is one thing I am struggling with in this report, and this is the £15 per night price tag attached to parking in a car park and sleeping there overnight when it would normally be empty. This is too much to charge at most of the suggested locations. If we say an average charge in high season to park in a South Hams car park is £5 per day, and our car parks are full during peak season, how can we charge 3 times this amount for a motorhome to park overnight when the car park would normally be virtually empty and with no facilities being offered? We need to encourage overnight parking, not discourage it. I would like to put forward a recommendation to get £10 per night, because this is better than nothing per night. Let's price ourselves too high so our offering is not attractive enough, thus no extra car park income or no extra revenue stream for towns and villages. There is an exception to this train of thought though. North Sands, Torcross and Slapton. These have 2 out of 3 of these car parks have amazing views from the car park. I think it's exceptional to charge £15 per night at these, as £5 extra is worth it just for the viewing location. There is indeed a balancing act to be had. We don't want to be in competition with other local sites, but we will not be. The motorhome users that use car parks are a different clientele to those who would rather use sites with amenities. These people don't want to sit outside and have barbecues and set up seats and windbreaks. Most want to walk along the coastal paths or into the local centre and support the local economy by buying local, and then return to their motorhomes for a good night's sleep. I'd be extremely surprised if there were anything to the contrary reported. Yes, last year did see litter and human waste around car parks, especially at Slapton and Torcross, and this was blamed on motorhome users. But why would it be them? They have their own onboard facilities. Residents who may want to object to the change in parking orders for those car parks affected should bear in mind that last year there were no officers from South Hams patrolling these car parks and motorhomes were parking in there anyway. This year will be different if the proposals go ahead, as officers will be making sure that the car parks are being used correctly. In other words, if a car park such as North Sands in Salcombe is taken out of this order, then motorhomes will park there anyway, just like they did last year, because officers won't be patrolling these car parks of an evening to make sure motorhomes are being compliant, because the parking orders, there wouldn't be any on that car park. Surely it is better to have an order on a car park for some kind of control than no order and no control. Also, this year, especially sites are already getting booked up. A lot of sites have no spaces left for the summer holidays. So, Leader, thank you for listening, and I am proposing an amendment. I would like to propose that we charge £15 for overnight parking at Slapton, Torcross and North Sands, as these car parks are in exceptional locations, and £10 per night to charge at other car parks. I would also like to see some wording in the recommendation that shows if this is approved, then we will enter into a 3-week consultation period on the proposed parking order. Motorhomes need to be seen as a revenue stream and not a problem. We need to change our attitude and encourage, not exclude. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hopwood. Do you have a seconder for your amendment?
Second.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hawkins. The monitoring officer would like to speak. Mr. Fairbairn.
Thank you, Leader. Just to pick up on the point about the consultation, yes, the variation to the car parking order would be subject to consultation, and of course you have at this stage got an open mind in terms of your proposals going forward in terms of the variation, because obviously you can't consult having had a closed mind. So that if there is a consultation exercise, then those recommendations or the results of that consultation will be brought back to you for further discussion and debate. In terms of a question I think was posed earlier, the breach of the car parking order would result in a penalty charge notice. So anybody in breach of the parking order gets a civil penalty, which we then recover through the courts in the normal way. It's no longer a criminal offence to park in breach of a parking order. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much, and forgive me for not bringing you in earlier. Right, Councillor Baldry.
Can I just speak on the amendment? I was planning, Leader, to take on board all the comments and not speak in reply to every individual comment, but briefly on the amendment, I thank Councillor Hopwood for her support for the proposals in general and the whole idea. But on the question of the amendment, I'm more than happy to accept the first bit in red, which is emphasising the consultation period, but I think £15 is a very fair charge for all car parks. The whole idea of this is to encourage people to come to our towns. If you think the average motorhome has at least 2 people in it, so expect them to pay £7.50 each for overnight. If they're not willing to pay £7.50 each for overnight stop in a place, are they going to actually be people who are willing to go and spend? They're too mean to go and spend money in our towns, which is the whole idea of it. So I am opposing the reduction in the amendment, and we have already, Councillor Hopwood has emphasised, we have increased our localities facility with people having to be out and about checking that the motorhomes are correctly parked and not creating other nuisances. That has to be paid for. I think the £15 charge is quite a reasonable charge for all car parks, and if they're too tight to pay that, do they really expect them to go and spend money in the local facilities?
Thank you, Councillor Baldry. We are at the moment discussing the amendment only. I have another hand up here. Councillor Bastow.
Yes, totally agree with Councillor Baldry as seconder to the motion. I think £15 is a fair charge. These people are not without funds, and when they park up in a car park, they don't just take up one space, they take up 2 spaces. And as I understand that there has to be a gap between camper vans because of in case of fire. We've had a couple incidents here in Dartmouth this year where camper vans have caught fire, one of them down on the embankment. So the space they take up is far more than just parking a car. So I feel £15 a night is fair game.
Thank you, Councillor Bastow. Councillor Hawkins.
I'm not certain whether my comments are for this section or for once the vote has taken place on the amendment, but I would just like to say this is not only revenue income, it's actually to welcome visitors to the South Hams, and we've got some amazing car parks which residents can use and visitors can use. I think £15 in all our car parks is too expensive, and that's why I'm supporting this amendment of £15 and £10, because I think that's far fairer.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Now, I've got a long list of people who want to comment here, but they all went up in the box, apart from Councillor Foss, who's just put one up, before we started discussing the amendment. So is there anybody who has put their name up to speak, who wants to speak on the amendment? I'll ask Councillor Foss, as you've just come in, I'll ask you first. Do you want to speak on the amendment?
Yes, I do, Leader.
Fine. Okay, carry on.
You're too cheap. Sorry. Yeah, £15 I thought was fine. If it had been me on Slapton Line, if I owned that car park, I'd charge them 25 quid and wouldn't even have any compunction about doing it because of where it is. So I think that cutting the 15 down to £10 on some car parks is not the right move. £15 a night for everybody is quite amenable, and I fully agree with what Councillor Baldry said.
Yeah. I would just comment that these the prices are in comparison with other councils in Devon doing similar things. Now, it's really getting difficult here, but I've got Councillor Sweet who wishes to comment on the amendment.
Thank you. I really welcome Nikki's amendment and agree with all of her comments and support for the recommendation in general. But reducing the charge to £10 was one of the first comments I made when I was advised of the proposal a month or so ago when it came through. I think £10 is fair. I think it will discourage people from parking on the side of the road. I think some people might look and think £15 is a bit much without any facilities there. In Totnes and Longmarsh, the toilets close at 6 o'clock. I know that you're saying only to have vehicles with their own facilities on board, but I don't really know if the localities officers will be sort of inspecting them. And nevertheless, I feel £10 is a really good price for the first year trial on this and see how it goes. We already have quite a lot of vehicles parking up there overnight, so I'll refer my comments on that until the next, after your vote on the amendment. But I would say that the vehicles that are parking there don't always take up 2 spaces. I mean, obviously, ideally they would, but if the car park does get full, and it is full with people using the river with canoes and kayaks down there, I think, sometimes there might be a time when they are actually squeezed in next to each other. So, I think this year stick to £10 in the locations and carry on with the 15 in the areas of outstanding natural beauty locations. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Councillor Sweet. I'd remind you that attached to the agenda paper, there is an example of the proposed notice that will go up. And that does make the regulations quite clear. And anybody who isn't adhering to those regulations will get a ticket. Right. Now, I think I have come. Is there anybody else who wants to speak on the amendment? This is getting really complicated. Because if there isn't...
Leader, sorry, can I come in, Leader? I think you're right, every other expression or wish to speak was before the amendment was proposed and seconded. Councillor Rowe has also come in to say she wishes to speak, but not on the amendment. But Councillor Kemp has put forward a suggestion. So whether that is on the amendment, that is the only member at this moment who wishes to speak on the amendment that I can see.
Okay, Councillor Bastone, you've still got your hand up. Is that residual, or do you want to come back in?
That's residual, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Right, so yes, I've got Councillor Kemp who's got a suggestion. Is this on the amendment, or is this just a general suggestion, Councillor Kemp?
It's a suggestion on the amendment in that if there are no extra facilities and this is just a trial, then £12 a night would be fairer, and then you've got room for because I believe it will be a success. And then in the future, when you have provided facilities, then we can whack it up to sort of £22-25 a night, because obviously it's crossing 2 spaces. So yeah, that's my suggestion, sort of £12 a night while there's no facilities.
Yeah, for Councillor Kemp, at the moment we're not proposing facilities, and anyway, if we do, it'll be on a very few selected car parks, and that is supposing that we do. But at the moment, that isn't on the agenda at all. So I think it's time to vote on the amendment. I'm going to take this, I think, councillor by councillor, because I know that we're not all agreed on this. Councillor Bastone, are you voting for the amendment or against?
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Hopwood?
For.
Councillor Hawkins?
For.
Councillor Baldry?
Against.
It looks like that I've got the casting vote on this one. I'm voting for the amendment. So by my reckoning, Mr. White, that means the amendment is carried. Is that correct?
That is correct. Leader, by 3 votes to 2, the amendment is carried and is therefore the substantive motion for which further debate is invited.
Thank you very much. Right, so I will go back down my list and try and sort this lot out. I've got Councillor Rowe first, I think, who wants to make a comment. Sorry, but Councillor Rowe, I'm sorry, before I bring you in.
Councillor Rowe, did you say, Judy? Sorry.
I said Councillor Rowe, but before I bring you in, Councillor Rowe, can I just make sure that there aren't any comments or debate from members of the executive? Sorry to put you off. Yes, I've got one hand up here. That is Councillor Hawkins.
Sorry, Councillor Rowe, I apologise for delaying you. I think this is a really good idea. I fully support it, particularly now we've voted on the amendment. It certainly is a way of helping our economy in the South Hams. We have got some amazing car parks, as we've already been discussed. Enforcement, can I ask Mr. Fairburn on one issue? If we're allowing vehicles that have got facilities, if a vehicle is parked and is seen to be discharging on the car park, I'm assuming we can, would that be a civil matter or would that be a criminal matter? And that obviously is completely different to just an ordinary car parking fine. And I think that we should review this after this summer is finished, in the autumn or in the winter, to see how we can progress this and perhaps improve this. And I would perhaps suggest even at that time that the car parks in Kingsbridge and in Totnes on the riverside, those should also go to £15 because they are beautiful venues, absolutely gorgeous places to spend the night. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Councillor Hawkins. Councillor Hopwood.
Thank you, Leader. I think I hear what Councillor Hawkins has just said, but this is a 12-month trial. This is what we're actually voting for, and I think we need to give this 12 months to see how it goes. I'm delighted that this recommendation is now, or the amendment is now the substantive motion. I thank yourself and Councillor Hawkins for the open approach you've taken. It is really important to realise that the people who are going to park in these motorhomes, we seem to have a hang up about everything they're going to do wrong, but proper motorhome users will do respect places. They don't need to dump their grey water, which actually is only hand washing water, or if they've had a shower, it's not filthy, dirty water. In fact, you know, in the droughts of previous years, we've had to use our bath water to go on our roses to make them grow. So it's not to happen, but they have their own wastewater containers that will not dump it on the car park, and I think it needs to. We are respectful people, but in every single avenue, wherever you are, there are always a few people who don't respect it, and it is always the case of the minority ruin it for the majority. But I'm glad that this council is now proactive and really hope that this goes through and we can put 9 motorhome areas on the map moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hopwood. Now, Rosemary Rose, I'll call you in now, and I'm sorry to have put you off just now.
No, that's all right. Thank you, Leader, very much. Now, we've been talking about charges, and you've changed the charges in some of the car parks. Well, that's up to the executive what they want to charge, how they've worked it out and all the rest of it, particularly Councillor Hopwood, who seems to know an awful lot about it because she owns one. However, I have worked on a caravan site where we've had motorhomes, camper vans and static caravans and caravans that come and go and all the rest of it, and I do know quite a lot about what people do with their waste, with their wastewater and all the rest of it. And I think one thing we haven't considered is, and I've not heard anybody mention it, how much this is actually going to cost the council. What's the cost to us, apart from how much we're going to get off people who park? And I did see somewhere in the papers the amount that it's going to cost us to change the parking meters. They will have to be constructed to say whether it's £10 or £15 now. Obviously, that'll have to be on there, and how they will be able to pay, because presumably it will be by card, so that might have to also be put into the meters. So there'll be a cost there. There's going to be a cost. I'm also concerned about the number of litter bins, whether they take their litter away with them or not, because on the papers where Ivy Bridge in Leonard's car park has got one bin, and they've got 187 car parking spaces. So obviously they should get more overnight stops there. And Kingsbridge, which has got 25 spaces and has 3 litter bins. There doesn't seem to be any logic in that to me. So I think perhaps they may need more bins, because wherever people think they're going to take their litter away with them, we know damn well they don't always do that. They won't take their litter away with them. They look for a bin, and if the bin's full, 9 times out of 10, they put it down by the side of the bin. And so I think that litter bins need to be looked into. And if somebody comes along at 10 o'clock at night and parks up, there won't be one of our locality officers won't be out there then to check whether they pay or not. So if they arrive at 10 o'clock at night, go away at 6 o'clock in the morning, how will we know if they paid or not? I think, you know, there is a lot of pros and cons attached to this, and it's not going to be all wonderful. That's my main comments, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Councillor Brazil.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I welcome this report. It's long overdue, and I think it's definitely a step in the right direction. The pilot scheme, the 12-month pilot scheme, I think is excellent. Inevitably, some people are going to tell us that this is the end of the world as they know it. But others, sorry. While others agree with it, but you know, think it's good, and particularly for the local businesses, I think it's going to be good news. Just a couple of points. First of all, sorry about this.
Councillor Brazil, are you there?
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I just had to get, someone's insisting on keep phoning me. Just to say that that I think much of the success or failure on this scheme will depend on the monitoring and/or enforcement. I know we've put extra resources into keeping an eye on the local hotspots, but I do think that as this scheme rolls out, we may find that we need to employ officers to monitor almost at all times of the day and night. And I don't think we should just say, oh, 8 o'clock, that's it, we're all going home. And we should be more flexible as to if they need monitoring later on. And that's certainly the message that we've been getting back from the parish councils along the Slapton line, is that they want there to be proper monitoring and enforcement to make sure that it happens. I think Rose talked about the extra bins, the pricing. I think we will sort that out. I appreciate that it's been changed to 10 and 15. I think we can sort that out at the end of the pilot scheme. I just also ask that we might, there may be some kind of survey done of the people using it this time to say what they think works well, what hasn't worked well, and what they would like to help us after the 12 months, so that we can move on and make it a really, a great asset for the district council and the area, and to welcome these motorhome users. So all in all, I think this is good news, and I thank the council for progressing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brazil, for your supportive remarks. Now, Councillor Sweet, I'm going to leave you for the moment because you've already spoken. Councillor Kemp.
I've already spoken, thank you, Judy.
You've already spoken too, right. Councillor Long.
Thank you, Chairman. This policy and change, I think, is to be welcomed in a lot of areas where we've had issues, and may address those issues. Hopefully, it's already been said that it will not address those who wish to free camp. They will not pay anywhere. That's already recognised. And I think one of the things that not under our control or gift, there is a need for some really effective and comprehensive on-street enforcement by Devon County Council, because that's where I think the issues are going to be for those who want to free camp. One of the things that it doesn't address really is the availability of parking during daytime hours when travelling around. Obviously, the car parks, some areas free up during the evenings, others don't. But obviously in areas like Salcombe, we do not have enough parking spaces anyway that allow people to park for long periods during the day. So that is an issue here, and particularly an issue with North Sands. I have had the opportunity to look at most of the sites, and they are all very different in what the sort of particular problems they can address with access there. So each car park really needs to be assessed and looked at for the sort of suitability, and I'm sure problems will come up in each area. Although this policy may be appropriate, we have to recognise that there are already campsites and facilities available in the areas of some of these sites, and I particularly want to focus on North Sands. There are campsites very close to it, which do provide facilities, will have facilities available, very similar to what we're being provided, even in a busy season, for people to be able to park up. And, one of the things, we should not be in competition with existing campsites. And I think that is a sort of a big question. The question is also the 2 consecutive nights, which means that they may be staying during the day. And obviously with a small car park, which North Sands is, it is a small car park. Access is difficult. It's very tight, sort of getting down to it, coming down Sandhills Road. Some may try and come in through the Collerton Road, which is even more difficult if they don't know the area. It is a sensitive site. It's a valley site, and it is a very busy car park, as everybody knows, most times, because it's a beach car park. The idea of 6 p.m. to 9 a.m., if anybody knows North Sands, that car park is pretty busy into the early evenings and sort of fairly early in the mornings. So it will be very difficult for people to park there. And it's really, there are problems that are going to come up with what is being proposed. But what I would say, I intend to, Councillor Pearce. What I would say is that the problems at North Sands are going to be far more than the benefits it brings. So I have severe hesitation in North Sands being proposed. It will, as everybody has said, mean considerably more enforcement and review. So I would actually like to see North Sands removed for this year and see how it progresses in the other car parks to see what sort of problems arise, because I think North Sands will give us more problems than the benefits it will bring, particularly as we have a large number of campsites in close proximity to it. And I don't want to see us to be in competition with them. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Long, 2 remarks on that. First of all through last summer, there were people camping, overnight staying on North Sands car park all through the season. And the second thing is, this car park was only included as a late entry because of a specific request from the Mayor of Salcombe. We haven't included it.
I recognise that, Chairman, and North Sands saw camper vans. The camper vans, motorhomes that were there are the types that were giving problems last year in the car park, were the type that wouldn't be caught by this policy. And I recognise that, and it comes back to, as Nikki Councillor Hopwood said, there are some people who will not behave themselves, will give problems, and will create social sort of behaviour.
I take your remarks, but I think we must wait for the 3-week consultation.
And I welcome that, Chairman. Yeah. And I think we will see a large number of comments, and obviously we need to take all those comments on board. Thank you.
Yeah. But the problem may then be that we don't have the resource to actually police the car park if it's not one of the official camping sites. Right, Councillor Baldry.
Chairman, no, I was going to make comments at the end, but can we not get bogged down in one particular car park?
Well, I did try and curtail the discussion on one car park. Yes. Councillor Sweet, do you have something very quick to say, please?
Yeah, thank you. I had sort of 3 comments which I'd initially made when I first heard about this proposal. One, obviously, I've already covered. The second one is litter. I think that it would be a great opportunity to trial glass recycling in the camper van car parks. It's something that I think, lots of us would like to see rolled out. And it feels that if it's contained in those camper van car parks, we can have, quite a good idea of whether there is contamination in the glass that's collected. My second comment is about travellers who use the car park in Totnes sort of all year round. I feel that they're often people who are working locally or who are visiting family.
Yeah, can we try
I just wanted
not discuss
to ensure
specific car parks? Sorry, we've just said that, we're not going to discuss specific car parks, and you can take that up with the officers if you think there are people
I haven't had a reply yet, so I just felt like I needed to mention it.
Yeah, okay, right. Councillor Foss, have you got another comment to make?
No.
No? Okay, sorry.
No. Well, I've said all I needed to say. We've got a 3-week consultation, and I really look forward to moving this forward.
Okay, right. Now, I think I've come to the end of the list. Is there anybody I've missed off?
Yes, I have.
Councillor Rose, come back.
Yes, well, I'm concerned about this. It's great. The idea is fine, but are we doing it to accommodate people coming here, or are we doing it because we at least need to break even or even make some money? Because on page 24 under Y, when it's saying the details of what it will cost and all the rest of it, well, we've already changed where it says based on 4 user car parks, blah, 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 at £15 per user. Well, we're not going to get £15 now. One is going to be £15 and the other is going to be £10 per night. The cost of changing the keypads, etc., is going to be £9,022, and all the additional expenses, plus the additional emptying of bins, street cleaning, all the rest of it. Are we going to make any money off it? Because if we're not going to make any money off it, then I really don't understand why we're doing it. That's
Councillor Rose, the bin emptying and the street cleaning is already included in the summer schedule, so it isn't part of this costing. If we reduce the car park charges in some of the car parks to £10, I think that will still cover the £9,000 change on the machines. But the purpose of this is not so much for the council to make a profit, but the purpose of this is to deal with the motorhome problem that we had last summer, and also to welcome motorhome and camper van users into the area so that they will spend on local businesses.
Right, okay, so we're basically doing it then to help local businesses and not as benefit to the council coffers.
No,
okay, right. Fine.
Okay, right, Councillor Baldry.
End of story.
Thank you, Leader. I have some general points to make at the end. They will be brief. Others seem to have spoken at length. But before that, I'm going to invite the officers if they want to say anything. And in particular, I think Mrs. Moody and Mr. Molyneux are in the meeting. Do they want to say anything about enforcement?
Thank you.
Silence.
No, hi. Thank you, Councillor Baldry. I welcome all your comments. Obviously, we'll take them on board. We will have some monitoring that we will do, and I welcome Councillor Brazil's suggestion with the survey. I think that's a really good idea that we should be doing throughout the summer, and we will obviously task the locality officers and our civil enforcement officers to do that. It's something that across the country, councils are beginning to look at this and embrace welcoming motorhomes into council car parks which aren't used at the night time. So I think we will begin to see a move, and I welcome everyone's positive responses today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Right.
Right.
Yep.
Shall I just I'll just sum up because just to reiterate a great deal of what has been said, there is general support for the proposal. It is good for the local economy. It's interesting that Mrs. Willicombe has drawn my attention to a discussion taking place in the British Parking Association on the same subject. British Parking Association represents 300 local authorities and private car park providers, and they are not split. In general, there is some adverse remark. Pembrokeshire are saying there has been some abuse, but places like Dover and Blackpool are greatly supportive of this. Councillor Hopwood made some very valid points, and can I use this opportunity to confirm my view on what she said? There are enormous opportunities, not just in local authority car parks, but in other car parks where they might want to consider providing this sort of facility for their local town and village, where they have car parks for people to come in. I would encourage other places to look into doing this. Repeating myself, I know there is a 3-week consultation will start if this is approved today. I will take account of all the views expressed before this meeting, during this meeting and after this meeting before we make a final recommendation. It is a great opportunity and I hope the council will support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Baldry.
Sorry, I mean the executive, not the council. Sorry.
Thank you. Executive members, are we all in favour of this paper? If anybody is not in favour, would you say now, please? With the recommendations as they stand on the screen. Right, I think I can take that everybody is in favour. Mr. White, would you confirm that, please?
I can confirm, thank you, Leader. That was 5 unanimous in favour of the substantive motion. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you very much. So we'll move on to the next item, which is the electric vehicle charging and renewable energy strategy. I'm introducing this paper, so I will do that now. Sorry, and I've just got to find it. Sorry, I've just got to find my remarks. I'm sorry about this. I have got them, but I just need to. Yeah. They've fallen off my screen while we've been debating the other matter. So. This paper provides an update of progress with the Sxtc and the AUKS projects. It explores the potential investment opportunities for further charging networks in our communities on an evidence of need basis. It sets out proposals to investigate the scope opportunities across the council's property portfolio, namely car parks, depots and offices. It recommends further to the council's climate change and biodiversity strategy and action plan, a proposal to transition the fleet of electric vehicles, transition the fleet of vehicles to electric vehicles and to invest in charging infrastructure at Bolton House and Totnes Depot to support this. And it recommends investigating solar and battery storage opportunities in our car parks for future consideration. Executive members, are there any questions, please? Silence. Members, are there any questions? This is a wide-ranging paper, but I think it does show the direction of travel towards ambitions in the climate change and biodiversity strategy action plan. Questions from members of the public? Members of the public. Members.
Councillor Foss, Leader.
Councillor Foss, yes. Councillor Foss.
Yes, Leader. I'm very pleased to see some of this, but the question is, why does it take so long to come forward on solar panels on car parks? I mean, I and a couple of other councillors in the last council discussed all this, but it just seemed to get buried. We did manage to get some solar panels on the Folleton, but this is a long time. We need to be getting on with this, and I'm just wondering why it's taking so long.
Councillor Foss, I think it is a question of appraising the capital expenditure against the amount of electricity we could generate and what we could do with it, because it's maybe not as obvious as it seems. It seems like a very good idea, but it may not be in all places, and that's why we're going to have an appraisal done of where it might be possible to do it. Because I think rather than using a scattergun approach, if we're going to do it, we've got to do it in the best places. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does, but I understand what you're saying, but particularly the solar panels over car parks, we went into that in quite a lot of detail a long time ago. But anyway, I look forward to us moving it forward. Thank you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Right. Councillor Long.
Thank you, Chairman. I really welcome this report. I'm glad to see it moving forward. There's obviously a lot of issues there. My question is about the charging points in car parks. There has been the matter raised in other areas where people sort of, if you like, hog the charging points. And obviously, what sort of controls are there for people occupying those, coming into a car park, plugging in and then going off for the day, and not, how is this going to be handled?
But they're going to have to pay for the car parking space as well, Councillor Long, so I should think they'd move off as quickly as possible as they normally do.
One would hope so, but I doubt it, unfortunately.
Well, in that case, they'll get a ticket, won't they?
Okay.
Right, any more questions? Right, well, in that case, I will propose the recommendation. Sorry, Councillor Baldry. I beg your pardon, Councillor Baldry.
So the answer to Councillor Long is at paragraph 3.19, where it says that we'll have to pay to park in charging bays the same as every other driver has to pay in the normal bay. They will have to pay for it, and they're no more likely to overstay their welcome than any other user.
Thank you, Councillor Baldry.
Chairman, I think my question was that we're providing the facility, and once somebody's charged, they're obviously not moving away from it, so it reduces the turnover on that facility. I recognise they'll be paying for the spot as such, but it's the turnover and the ability for others to use it during the day. That's my concern.
I understand that, but I would have thought if they've got to pay for the car parking space, they will only pay for the minimum amount of time they need to charge their car. And I'm sure when it comes to it, that can be regulated in some way by the car parking notice. Right. I don't seem to have any more questions, so I am going to propose the recommendations.
Second.
1 to 4, as at the top of the paper. Thank you, Councillor Baldry, for seconding them. Right, so we'll move into the debate now. Executive members, do any of you want to say anything on this? Councillor Hawkins.
Just to share Councillor Foss's comment, so many people in our communities are finding that we are doing this very slowly. I know there's reasons why we're doing it in the way that we're doing it, but there's an awful lot of residents and parishes who are urging us to do this with more speed. So I'm delighted that we're now progressing further with this. Thank you, Leader.
Yeah, thank you. I think, Councillor Hawkins, one of the remarks I'd like to make on that is that I think this paper does emphasise what a complex subject this is and how expensive the capital costs of providing the service when you really have no indication of how you're going to recoup the money later is one of the things that is preventing this happening, particularly by the private sector investing in it. Councillor Baldry.
Just picking up those 2 points. First, of course, if any town or parish wishes to put in an electric charging point, and if they apply to this council, I'm sure we would favourably consider their use of one of our parking spaces as long as the finances are okay. There's nothing to stop town and parishes doing it themselves. Also, building on what you've just said, Councillor Pearce, it seems the emphasis very much is on local authorities to provide electric charging points. There is no reason why other individuals or petrol filling stations or supermarkets should not do it as well. This does not have to be solely a responsibility of local authorities. It should be considered by other people if they can provide the same sort of facility. I think I echo what people have said. It is very slow progress, but I think that is explained in the paper, and the financial reasons for the slowness are in the paper. That's why I'm pleased to second it.
Thank you, Councillor Baldry. Right, Councillor Foss, you'd like to comment, please? Yeah.
Yeah, yes, I would. Yeah, I welcome this. Don't get me wrong, but what I was just saying just now was that we started this conversation some considerable time ago, and it just sort of disappeared off into. But there we are. We are where we are. Yes, I welcome it. For an instance, I've just downsized my car because I'm now on my own. I would like to have gone fully electric. It's not possible at the moment, so I've gone for a hybrid for the time being. But I think that long term, we've got to provide a lot more slots. And in answer, if there's any help to Councillor Long's question, the particular spot that you've got for the charging of the electric could be available for the first hour at the normal rate, and then put an excessive rate on it from thereafter. I would have thought would be one way around shifting them off the charging points.
Thank you, Councillor Foss. I'm sure that will be looked at when the time comes. Councillor Hallway.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, just to say, I think the most important part of this report is that we need to be talking to the distribution network operator, Western Power and Distribution, to find out their timing of providing sufficient infrastructure, not just for the South Hams, but for the whole of the Southwest, because regardless of who actually installs the kit, they're going to have to provide an infrastructure for all of the charging. And so we need a reasonable idea of what the rollout is likely to be and what the take-up of electric vehicles is likely to be, and then talk to Western Power to see if they can actually cope with that. Because someone somewhere should be able to work out roughly what the requirement will be. And just a quick one on car parking. It's a lovely idea, but you've got to remember that 16 panels on the roof on a good day might get you 3.5 kilowatts or kVA an hour. So you need 32 panels. I know mine are slightly out of date now, but even so, you need about 30 panels to charge a car on a good day. That's on a 7 kilowatt charger. So it strikes me that EVs and batteries to do your car charging are not a very sensible idea. You're better off with your wind generators and fields full of solar or whatever to provide the power, and then if you like, get it into the car parks. But by the time you think about Follerton with the trees and the shade and everything else, plus the weather we get, I don't honestly think you'll get an awful lot of power out of the panels to charge the vehicles. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hallway. I believe I'm right in saying that as statutory undertakers, Western Power are under an obligation to supply power where it is required. I mean, that's what happens in planning, but I'd be happy for the officers to give us a view on that if they could.
Thank you, Councillor Pearce. Yeah, happy to come in. So that's absolutely right. I mean, just in those last couple of conversations, some really key issues have been brought up, and that's great. And those are the things that we're going to explore in detail. So the grid capacity, it's not a question of, well, it is a question of has it got sufficient? And then if it doesn't have sufficient in the location that you want it, it's the cost of upgrading it. Because as you say, Councillor Pearce, they will upgrade it for you. It's just a question of how much does it cost? And then all of the issues that Councillor Holloway raised are absolutely relevant. The link between EV charging, solar and battery is there, but it's not as people often perceive it. So people often perceive the solar panels to be there to charge the cars. In reality, they're not, because as Councillor Holloway points out, the capacity of the solar panels is likely to be way below the capacity required for several rapid chargers. What the solar panels do is they take advantage of the sharing of the costs of upgrading the network for the connections you need from the grid to the chargers. So battery storage, solar and EV are linked through the requirements of the grid rather than through the requirements to charge the cars directly. So a very good point, well raised, and I think conversations and debate so far have shown just how complex this is and the need to get all of this information in one place so that you as councillors can take an informed decision, and that's what we intend to do. I hope that helps.
Thank you, Councillor Brooke. Councillor Brooke. Thank you. Sorry, I don't know whether I've demoted you or promoted you.
Is that a promotion or demotion?
That's a demotion. Sorry, it's a demotion. Certainly is salary-wise anyway, that's for sure. Right. I can't see any more comments coming up, so I think we're probably ready, executive members, to take a decision on this. Are you all in favour?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, unanimous. Thank you. Oh, Councillor Baston, you just put your hand up.
Yeah, we've taken the vote. I just wanted to, as you're aware, Leader, this meeting is going on longer than we expected, and I have to leave at 1 o'clock for my second jab. Is there any possibility that we could take items 10 and 12 now, and then you could revert back to 9 and 11 after that?
Yes. Do the rest of the members agree with that? Because yes. Okay. Let's take item 10, and then we'll have a short break, as we'll have been going for 2 hours, and then we'll take the write-off report, Councillor Baston, for you. How's that? All right.
Much appreciated, Leader. Item 10 then, which is the development management stroke planning enforcement strategy. Following the pandemic, the need for an effective and efficient planning service has never been more important, whether it is handling the increase in homeowner applications or supporting business to get back on its feet again. However, we all know that planning and planning enforcement are our Marmite services, and depending on your perspective, our customers or residents are either happy with the outcome or infuriated with it. Whilst we cannot avoid this, what we can do is ensure that the way the council handles planning applications and enforcement cases is consistently good, timely and transparent. Therefore, I have asked the Chief Executive and the Director of Customer Service Delivery to conduct a comprehensive review of both service areas, whilst the senior leadership instigate and conduct operational service reviews as part of business as usual. The strategic and reputational importance of this service warranted bringing a report to the Executive. The report is self-explanatory. Paragraph 1.3 highlights the key outcomes we are looking to deliver: improvements in performance, quality, communication, customer and member satisfaction. Section 2 highlights the increasing volumes, and Section 3 the scope of the review, which is comprehensive and links to the Council's recovery plan and wider objectives. I know that Mr. Molyneux has already instigated a robust review of planning enforcement activity, and another key element will be the new IT system, which will not only deliver efficiencies for the planning team, but will offer functionality for members of the public and ward councillors. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Baston. Any questions from members of the Executive?
No.
No? Thank you. Well, I'll open it to the floor then. Any questions from the floor, please? No? Right. Well, in that case, Councillor Baston, you can propose the recommendations.
I will move the recommendations which are set out on the screen.
Thank you, and I'll second them. Right. Can we go into the debate from members of the Executive first, please? Do you want to make any comments on this? Can't see any hands going up, so we'll hand it over to the floor for members to comment on if they wish to. I think it's fairly self-explanatory, actually. Councillor Pannell.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, just I welcome this. In our ward, we do have a number of cases of under the enforcement list, which is in some cases seem to be going on for 7 or 8 years. And there's a lot of dissatisfaction in amongst some of our parishes that nothing seems to happen. I think the way these are handled needs to be looked at, and whether we write these off and close them down. We either enforce them. The clue is in the name. We either enforce the regulations, or if we feel it's not appropriate, we close it down. We shouldn't be leaving things lying on for years and years. And I've also had some other cases where people have been very aggrieved at the length of time it's been taken, going back before COVID and the difficulties that imposed, for anyone to come and take notice of complaints. So I think if anything that we can do to improve our performance and communication would be welcome.
That will be one of the main aims of this review, Councillor Pannell. And it is also into development management. It's not just enforcement. Councillor Foss.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I welcome this too, but just bear in mind, as Councillor Baston, I think, said about Marmite, and it's quite the case with planning and enforcement. We only hear about the bad bits. There's an awful lot of work that goes on in the back scene, and I wouldn't want to criticise any of the officers of what's been going on. It's a very difficult position, but if we can have a look at how we work, and if we can make it a little bit better and a better understanding, so that the general public have got a better understanding of how things work, because I think sometimes they've got some misconceptions of how we progress things forward, and that can cause, as we all go to our parish councils, even some of them do not understand how the processes work and why some things take so much longer than others. Perhaps we can get a better understanding of that. Would be very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Foss. Do we have any other comments on this paper? I think we're all looking forward to the results of the improvement plan coming forward. I think we're ready to take a vote on this. Are we all in favour?
Yes, Leader.
I think we probably are. Yes, thank you. Right. Sounds like it. Right, thank you. So we'll move on to the write-off report, which is actually number 12 on the agenda. Councillor Baston, would you like to present this report, please?
Yeah, this is our standard write-off report that we bring before the executive. It's normally considered once a quarter, but due to the additional workload created by the pandemic, it was decided that this report would be presented annually for 2021. The report for 2021 asks the executive to note debts written off by the Section 151 officer of £187,751.43, shown in tables 1 and 2, and asks the executive to approve the write-off of individual debts in excess of £5,000, totalling £241,406.95, which are shown in table 3. In terms of the debts over £5,000, the majority of these cases are due to insolvency. The 4 business rates cases totaling just under £210,000 are all ratepayers going into insolvency measures. So unfortunately, we don't have an option to collect the debt. The largest case relates to a business rates debt of £176,000 for the period September 2018 to March 2020. The company has gone into administration. The council tax debt for nearly £7,000 relates to a single insolvency case where the council taxpayer has entered into an individual voluntary arrangement. There are 3 sundry debtor cases totaling just over £25,000. 2 of these relate to debts where the companies have dissolved, and the other case relates to a debtor who has absconded and is untraceable. I am pleased to say that the collection rates have held up very well in the circumstances, as at the end of February 2021, the council has collected 95.34% of council tax for 2021, and this compares to 95.95% as at February 2020. A reduction of 0.61% in terms of business rates as at the end of February 2021, the council has collected 88.43% of business rates for 2021, and this compares to 95.48% as at February, a reduction of 7.05%. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Baston. Members of the executive, have you got any questions to ask Councillor Baston on this? No? Any questions from the floor to Councillor Baston?
Yes, I've just got one little question. First of all, a very clear report.
Yes, carry on.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Councillor Pennington.
Yes, Councillor Pennington, ask your question, please.
Yes, a very clear report, and I congratulate the officers on producing it. But I've just got one little question. On page 12, under sundry debts, can you enlighten me, Lisa, with what comes under other? When I see things like that, I like to be clear. And it comes under other. It's just,
yes.
It's only 7.
Yes, so sundry debts, those would be the types of debts. So, for example, the council has its own estate management, its own assets, industrial estates that we let out, and we would charge rental income for that. So it's those types of debts that are in sundry debt, also things like licensing and car parking debts as well. So those are the types of sundry debts. In terms of others, that would be a reason for write-off that is not one of the main reasons that is listed in the report. So that can be things such as, it's not such as related to the age of the debt, but more other types of reasons for write-off in terms of sundry debtors.
Oh.
Does that help?
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Councillor Pennington. Has anybody else got a question? If not, Councillor Baston, would you like to move the recommendations, please?
I'll move the recommendations on the screen, recommendations 1 and 2.
Thank you, and I'll second them. And we have a hand up from, oh no, it's gone down. Right, so let's see, do we have any other? Members of the executive, does anybody want to enter any debate on this at all? If there are no hands up, then I'll open it to the, oh, there is a hand just gone up. Councillor Hopwood.
Thank you. I think we shouldn't underestimate the hard work that has gone in over the past 12 months that has gone into collection of council tax and other things in really difficult times. I thought that the figures would be way down. We need to highly commend our officers for working so hard over the past 12 months in really unprecedented times.
Thank you, Councillor Hopwood. And I think I'd also extend thanks to our residents as well for having paid council tax when it must have been very hard for some of those households to find the money. So I think our grateful thanks needs to go out to them too for, for playing a fair game with us. And Mrs. Buckle, could you explain to members what the government scheme for compensating any shortfall in business rates is during the COVID period?
Yes, so there's an income tax compensation scheme which is in place for 2021, and when we close down our accounts over the next couple of weeks, that in particular will look at things like increases in bad debt provisions. So as we calculate our bad debt provisions, we will be then looking to claim any increases in those provisions that we're putting through that income tax compensation scheme. It won't be a huge amount of money. It will probably be up to around about 50,000 for us, but every little helps. But that's what our indicative figures are telling us at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Baldry.
Sorry, this is a question, I'm afraid. It should have come earlier.
Right, don't worry, that's right.
It says in the report this is up until 31st of March, but of course a lot of the figures are only up until the end of February. In his opening comments, Councillor Bastone said that we normally report quarterly and this is exceptional and annual. Are we going to go back to quarterly reports in future?
This is would that answer.
Yeah, that would probably be the intention, Councillor Baldry, or else if members were happy, we could do a half-yearly report, so report every 6 months. The revenues team will still be obviously administering business grants all the way through April, May and June. So it would be helpful perhaps if for the first 6 months of 21-22 if we could do a half-yearly report. But if members prefer a report quarterly, we can certainly do that when we are back to sort of normal operating procedures.
And what is normal? Yeah, I'm just concerned because we haven't got the March figures in here yet in a lot of it. I have no particular axe to grind, but I wouldn't want to go another 13 months without seeing a report. So if the advice is to go for 6 monthly, let's do that, but not for 12 months, please.
Yes, no, that'd be fine. Thank you, Councillor Baldry.
Yeah, no, I think that's an entirely reasonable way of looking at it.
Yeah, that's a fair comment.
Yes. Right. Do we have any other comments or comments from the floor? Anybody want to comment on this? Because if not, we're going to take the decision. Can't see anything coming up. Right. Is everybody happy to vote in favour of this?
Leader, sorry, it's late, isn't it? Yeah, can we propose an additional recommendation that we get another report in 6 months?
Yes, I'm happy to do that. I think, if Mrs. Buckle says yes, it's going to happen. But yes, I'm happy to add a recommendation to that. So you want an amendment to add that we have another report in 6 months. Councillor Bastone, are you happy to accept that amendment?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Thank you.
You're okay with that. Other members of the executive, are you happy with that?
Yes.
Yes,
yes.
thank you.
Right.
Thank you for your indulgence. Thank you.
Yeah, it sounds like we're all in favour of that. So can we all indicate that we're voting in favour of this, please? Yes, everybody in favour?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Unanimous. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Right. Okay. Thank you very much. It is 12 o'clock. Shall we have a 10-minute break and come back at 12:10? That's all right? Okay.
Yes.
Yep.